So I'm joined by Tanya Foster and Sam Love. And so as our student athlete development team, we really wanted to take some time out to really honor, acknowledge, and celebrate Black History Month through some really critical conversation. And so I think a lot of times during Black History Month, we look out to Black people to really kind of champion that conversation. And so here with our staff, we wanted to take a new approach and really bring in some of our colleagues to kind of have that conversation with us. And so I'm going to take some time to kind of let them introduce themselves, and we'll jump right into the conversation. So Tanya, can we start with you?
Sure. As the oldest person in the panel today, my first memories of Black History Month go back to when I was in high school in the 1970s. And I grew up in Chicago, and a lot of that evolved out of the civil rights turmoil in the 1960s. The Democratic National Convention violence continued. And I think, if I'm not wrong, the first Black History Month was sponsored by Kent State. It was initially embraced by higher education.
Yes.
I know that,
Yes.
rather than politicians. And it had some real momentum when I was in high school and college. And I think it, like many other social movements, it kind of waned for a while. People got complacent, and those who were concerned and really committed to it got energized.
Right.
And I think bringing everyone into the fold to celebrate Black History Month is important, because American history should be everybody's history.
Right.
And we lose sight of that all too often in too many places if there aren't Black voices raising the topic. So somebody needs to step up and do it.
Awesome. And that's why we appreciate you. Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so as a former educator, I think it's a really important part of the conversation, just like Tanya said, like how can we truly have this conversation about history or the impact that Black people have had on American history or our American culture without really taking time to reflect and understand what an impact that culture has had on our American story. So I always thought I grew up in a really diverse population. I'm from the outside of Chicago. And so I always thought like I had a really good experience in understanding different cultures and different people's experiences. But I would say when I was in school at Purdue, studying to become a teacher, I took some really important classes that I think opened my eyes to how little we really did learn growing up about the importance of Black history just beyond just this 1 month. Right. So I took a class called Black Women Writers, and it was really important to me because all of the reading that we did were Black women authors, and we really kind of learned how they shaped English literature, and that was really important. And so my first teaching job, I taught a creative writing class, and that was something that I brought with me to my classroom. I taught in a predominantly white community, and so it was really important for me to take what I had learned at Purdue and make sure that I was bringing that into my own classroom in a way that fit and opened my students' eyes to maybe the Black culture and how they brought that into English literature. And so that was kind of one of my first real experiences as a teacher. And then I was really fortunate when I was teaching as well. I paired with one of the history teachers and we did some units together. And it was just a good way to incorporate English and history, and recognize the Black history as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So I want to start with you, Sam. What is your earliest memory? I know you talked about during college, but what is something you vividly remember from your childhood?
Yeah, I would say probably in elementary school. I do feel like we watched the Martin Luther King I Had a Dream speech. I think probably maybe 5th or 6th grade, I remember watching that and that being, something that we did during Black History Month. But I do kind of feel like it was, a day or a moment, and it wasn't really something that we focused on. It wasn't a unit. It wasn't kind of spread out through my education. I just remember that being something that we did, in the month of February. So.
Got you. Awesome. And so speaking of education systems and units and the importance of really diving deeper into Black History Month, what are some of you all's thoughts on the current conversation around banning critical race theory in K through 12?
It's American history. I think there's enough documentation to clearly confirm that many horrible things were done.
Right.
And when you don't teach the blunders of your country, you are doomed to keep repeating them.
Right.
We have a lot of wonderful potential in the Black community if we don't do a better job of guiding it, not guiding, educating it, opening doors.
Right.
And again, that requires everybody to be on board.
That is true.
So I believe it should be taught in the schools.
What are your thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, I think, like Tanya said, I just don't understand how we could potentially teach American history without talking about this. And so, yeah, I'm totally supportive of having those important conversations and enlightening, the youth on what happened. I think some people that are potentially opposed to teaching it maybe think like this happened so long ago, but the reality is that it really wasn't that long ago. Like Tanya's talking about in her lifetime, what she remembers and what she recalls. And so I just think what needs to happen is we need to have these sometimes difficult conversations. But yeah, I don't think that you can truly explain our American history without the acknowledgement of that.
That's so real. Thinking about now social media is a thing, right? And people during just even this year, not Black History Month, Martin Luther King Day, people love to post pictures of Martin Luther King, and I'm starting to see those images in color.
Yeah.
And I think that is a big step because I feel like it makes it seem like it wasn't that long ago. Because when we see the pictures in black and white, it really feels like it was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But we're starting to see those pictures in color, and it's really starting, I think the newer generation is starting to feel like, oh, like, it's my grandparents.
Yeah.
Like, I think I saw something about Martin Luther King and Anne Frank being 93 and younger than Betty White, who just passed.
I saw that too.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
it's
it's
really
it's
incredible.
really starting when you look at it that way, and just something as simple as putting an image in color.
Yeah.
How that kind of trains our brains and educates us about
It modernizes it, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And so thinking about that, what is the importance of teaching this to the youth and starting in that K through 12 area instead of waiting to college? So I think you talked about it too, where we're having these conversations in college, but we've spent 18 years completely just not thinking about it. So what are your thoughts?
That's when people developed their basic core values.
Right.
And I had a lot of exposure, an unusual amount of exposure to people who were different than me growing up. It's benefited me in my college education, in my career. It has benefited me in so many ways.
Yeah.
You can't wait to do that when you're 18, 20, 22 and get the same level of benefits.
Gotcha. What do you think about Sam?
No, yeah, I think you're right. Like, I don't understand why, at least when I was growing up, why we just focused on it, during the month of February or just this one time of year. I do think it would have been way more important for me to be exposed to this earlier on in life. And, for my Black classmates to have that representation and have those conversations and have people that look like them that they can look up to, because those people exist. We just don't talk about them. Yeah. And so I think that would have been a lot more beneficial for me. And so I'm not in the classroom anymore, but I have lots of friends that are teachers, and I do know that, that my friends are making an effort to make sure that, they're having representation in their classrooms, because it's such an important age.
Yeah. Okay, kind of going off of that, what do you think we as an athletic department can do to kind of move the needle forward?
I think we've taken a lot of steps with that. With our student development program, we are very conscientious of trying to be inclusive when we nominate for postgraduate opportunities, when we send representatives to NCAA or Big Ten meetings. I know there's been a great deal of education from outsiders brought in to discuss this with our teams, and keeping the conversation going is probably the single most important thing we can do.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing in the cave is we've been working really closely with Dr. Cornelius Bynum, who oversees the African American Studies Department. Ben Hatfield in the cave has a really good relationship with him. He was Ben's mentor while he was a student here. And Dr. Bynum has come down to the cave and talked to a lot of our student athletes about what an African American Studies degree could do. And that's really important, and just making sure that our students know that there are lots of classes that they can take on campus to be better educated, that there are really important courses taught by some really influential and amazing people who can kind of open their eyes to the American Studies and African American Studies degree plans. Dr. Bynum came to the cave a couple of weeks ago, and he said, sometimes student athletes will say, or students will say, well, what can I do with an African American Studies degree? Like, what can I be when I grow up? And his answer is, there's no job that you're going to go to in this day and age where having a conversation about race isn't going to be an important part of your job. And so, Ben and I have really kind of taken it upon ourselves to kind of encourage our students to kind of explore some other classes that they can take. I think sometimes students take classes that their friends take or that they've heard of, and making sure that we're doing a really good job of educating all of those different majors or classes that they can take as well.
That's so awesome. I think, again, there's power in representation. I read this quote, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
So if I've never seen it or I've never had the opportunity to engage with something, then I really don't know it's there. And so I think our staff has done a really good job of bringing that to our student athletes. So that's all the questions that I have for you all. You guys have any final thoughts that you want to leave on the table?
I'm proud to see Purdue athletics fostering the conversation and committed to the cause, because you don't have a lot of opportunity to sit and talk with kids, and you need to make it valuable when you do it. So thank you for inviting us.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been a really great conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited to do more, excited to continue the conversation. So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for showing up as your authentic selves and really sharing that with me today. But yeah, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.